Land or 200 die. Los Angeles Tower screamed. The burning 737 was falling fast, 8 seconds from crashing into the city. 200 people about to die. Thousands below too. Captain Reynolds couldn't save them. Then she walked to the cockpit door, said, "Not today," and everything changed. Before you watch full story complete below, from which country are you watching? Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. Sarah Mitchell wasn't her real name. The passport said Sarah Mitchell. The credit card she'd used to book seat 2A said Sarah Mitchell. Even the coffee cup the flight attendant handed her during boarding had Sarah scribbled on the side in black marker. But names were just sounds. Just ink on paper. Just data in computers that could be rewritten, erased, replaced. Her real name was Dr. Kira Volkov, and she was supposed to be dead. She adjusted the laptop on her tray table without actually looking at the screen. The spreadsheet displayed there was fake, random numbers she'd generated to look busy, to look normal, to look like just another business traveler on Southwest Flight 2847 from Las Vegas to Los Angeles. 58 minutes gate to gate. She'd checked in online. Printed her boarding pass at a kiosk. Avoided eye contact. Kept her head down. 3 years of practice had made her very good at being invisible. The businessman in 2B had tried talking to her during boarding. Middle-aged, expensive suit, wedding ring, cologne that cost more than most people's car payments. He'd asked where she was flying from, what brought her to Vegas, whether she was staying in LA or connecting somewhere else. Kira had given him the smile. Professional but cold. The smile that said, "I'm polite but this conversation ends now." "Business," she'd said. "Just business." He'd gotten the message. Returned to his phone. Left her alone. The flight attendant had offered champagne. First-class privilege. Kira had accepted because refusing drew attention, but the plastic cup sat untouched beside her laptop. The bubbles had gone flat 20 minutes ago. Outside the window, the Mojave Desert stretched endlessly below. Brown earth. Scattered mountains. The occasional road cutting straight lines through nothing. They were at 37,000 feet, cruising smooth, the engines producing that constant white noise that made people drowsy on afternoon flights. Kira wasn't drowsy. Kira was never drowsy on planes. She was calculating. 58 minutes total flight time. 23 minutes elapsed. 35 minutes remaining. Descent would begin in approximately 18 minutes. They'd cross into LA airspace in 12. Land at LAX in 32, maybe 34 if there was holding pattern traffic. 34 minutes until she could get off this aircraft, collect her single carry-on bag, walk through the terminal, catch a rideshare south towards San Diego where her new apartment waited. New city. New identity. New start. 407th new start, if she was counting. She wasn't counting anymore. The silver bracelet on her left wrist caught the sunlight streaming through the window. It looked like interlocking geometric shapes, almost like a puzzle where the pieces shifted and moved, though that was impossible because metal didn't move on its own. It was just an optical illusion. A trick of the light. People who looked closely sometimes said the shapes seemed to flow. To rotate. To fold into dimensions that shouldn't exist. Kira never let people look closely. She'd made the bracelet herself 3 years ago, right after it happened. Right after CERN. Right after the wormhole. Right after everything changed. The bracelet wasn't jewelry. It was a focusing mechanism. A tool. A way to channel something that shouldn't exist inside a human body but did anyway because quantum physics didn't care about should or shouldn't. Quantum physics just was. And Kira had become something that shouldn't be but was anyway. She pushed the thought away. Glanced at the laptop. Pretended to scroll through the fake spreadsheet. In her peripheral vision, she could see the businessman in 2B watching a movie on his tablet. Across the aisle in 1C, an elderly woman dozed. Behind her, in row 3, a young couple whispered to each other about dinner plans in LA. Normal people. Normal lives. Normal problems like restaurant reservations and work deadlines and whether to take the 405 or the 10. Kira used to have normal problems. Dr. Kira Volkov, lead physicist at CERN's Large Hadron Collider facility. 29 years old and already running experiments that probe the fundamental nature of reality. She'd had an apartment in Geneva. A boyfriend who worked in the engineering department. Friends. A career. A future. Then came the experiment. Then came the wormhole. Then came the moment everything she understood about physics, about reality, about the universe itself, shattered like glass and reformed into something new and terrible and impossible. Kira closed her eyes. Breathed. Counted to 4 on the inhale, held for 4, exhaled for 4. The meditation technique she'd learned from a YouTube video in a Prague hostel 18 months ago. It helped. Sometimes. The airplane engines hummed. Steady. Reliable. Boring. She opened her eyes. Checked her watch. 24 minutes elapsed. 34 minutes remaining. 34 minutes and she'd be off this plane. Away from these people. Safe in. The explosion was so loud it felt like the hand of God slapping the aircraft sideways. The Boeing 737 lurched violently to the left. Kira's laptop flew off the tray table and slammed into the window. The businessman in 2B shouted something that got lost in the sudden screaming from economy class. The elderly woman across the aisle jerked awake with a gasp. Kira's hands were already gripping the armrests. Her knuckles white. Her heart rate spiking from 60 beats per minute to 90 in the space of 2 seconds. No. Stay calm. Breathe. It's just turbulence. Just. The oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling. Yellow plastic cups on elastic cords, swinging like grotesque party decorations. The flight attendant in the forward galley grabbed for the intercom but the aircraft tilted another 15 degrees left and she stumbled, caught herself on a seat back. Ladies and gentlemen, her voice was high, strained, trying for professional calm but landing somewhere near barely controlled panic. Please remain seated and place your oxygen masks. Another lurch. More screaming. Someone in economy was crying. No, multiple someones. And underneath it all, a sound that didn't belong. A roaring. A rushing. Like a blowtorch the size of a building. Kira looked out the window. The left engine was on fire. Not smoking. Not sparking. On fire. Flames 20 feet long streaming from the cowling. Pieces of metal, turbine blades, engine components, shrapnel, flying past the window. And the wing itself, the beautiful swept wing that was supposed to provide lift and stability and all the careful engineering that kept tons of metal airborne, was burning. Fire spreading across the aluminum skin like spilled gasoline. Black smoke pouring into the slipstream. Kira's heart rate hit 120. No. Not now. Stay calm. Don't let it. The aircraft dropped. Not a smooth descent. A drop. Like an elevator with cut cables. Kira's stomach flew into her throat. The businessman beside her was screaming now too. The oxygen mask swung wildly in front of her face but she couldn't make her hands let go of the armrests to grab it. Through the cockpit door, closed but not locked, she heard voices. Pilot voices. Professional voices. Voices that were supposed to stay calm in crisis but were cracking under impossible pressure. Fire suppression not working. Repeat, fire suppression not working. Hydraulics failing, I'm losing flight controls. Get on radio now, declare emergency. The PA system crackled. The captain's voice, and Kira had flown enough to know what pilot voices sounded like when they were scared. This pilot was terrified. Ladies and gentlemen, we have experienced a catastrophic engine failure with fire. We are attempting emergency procedures. Flight attendants, prepare the cabin for emergency landing. Emergency landing. That was the phrase they used when they didn't want to say crash. Kira forced her hands to move. Grabbed the oxygen mask. Pulled it over her face. The elastic strap tangled in her ponytail, but she yanked it down anyway. Breathed. Oxygen flooded her lungs, cold and metallic and sharp. The aircraft was still dropping. Still tilting left. The fire on the wing was worse now, she could see the metal itself starting to warp from the heat. Rivets popping. Panels separating. We're going to crash. The thought arrived in her mind fully formed, crystal clear, undeniable. This aircraft is going to crash and everyone on board is going to die. Her heart rate hit 140. The silver bracelet on her wrist was warm now. Not hot, but warm. Like it was absorbing her body heat. Like it was waking up. No. Can't use it. They'll find me. Every sensor on the planet will light up. I'll lose everything. 3 years of hiding, gone. They'll catch me. Lock me up. Turn me into. Through the cockpit door, more voices. The PA system was still on. Accidentally, probably. The pilots didn't realize the entire cabin could hear them. Tower, Southwest 2847, we have catastrophic engine failure, fire spreading to wing structure, losing hydraulics, descending through 30,000 feet. 2847, nearest airport is Burbank, vector heading 090. Negative, we can't maintain altitude, we're dropping too fast, we're not going to make any airport. A pause. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3 seconds of radio silence that felt like years. Then the captain's voice, quieter now, almost resigned. Tower, we're going down in the city. Kira looked out the window again. Not at the fire. Past the fire. Down. Below them, getting closer every second, was Los Angeles. Not the outskirts. Not some industrial area or empty lot. Downtown Los Angeles. She could see the skyscrapers. The high-rises. The towers of glass and steel where thousands of people were working, living, existing, completely unaware that 70 tons of burning aircraft were falling toward them. The tower's voice came back, sharp and urgent, cutting through the static. Southwest 2847, you need to attempt any landing. Burbank is your best option, you must try to make it. Captain Reynolds' voice was breaking now, all professionalism stripped away by raw terror and helplessness. We can't make Burbank. We can't make any airport. We're losing altitude too fast. We're going down in downtown Los Angeles. 2847, how long until impact? A pause. Kira could hear the pilots checking instruments, running calculations that no pilot ever wants to run. First Officer Chen's voice, hollow, estimate impact in downtown Los Angeles in approximately 90 seconds. The tower controller's voice changed. No longer professional. No longer calm. Just human. Just horrified. Southwest 2847. 90 seconds, you need to land now or 200 people die. Do you understand? Land or 200 die. Captain Reynolds' voice came back, and it was the voice of a man saying goodbye. We understand. We can't land. We're going into the city. God help us. God help everyone below. The screaming in the cabin reached a new pitch. Parents were clutching children. People were on phones, calling loved ones, saying goodbye. A man 3 rows back was praying in Spanish, rapid-fire words tumbling over each other. A woman was sobbing so hard she couldn't breathe. Through the accidentally open PA, the tower controller was shouting now. Land or 200 die. 8 seconds to impact. Land now. Land now. Captain Reynolds, barely audible over alarms, we can't. Then silence. The kind of silence that comes right before death. The aircraft plunged through 25,000 feet. The fire was eating the wing. Black smoke filled the window views. 70 seconds. Kira's heart rate hit 160. The bracelet was hot now. Definitely hot. The geometric shapes that formed it were glowing faintly, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. 60 seconds. 200 people on this plane. Thousands below in those buildings. All dead if we crash. 50 seconds. But if I use my ability, they'll find me. I'll be captured. Experimented on. Turned into a weapon. Everything I've run from for 3 years will catch up. I'll disappear into some black site and never see daylight again. Through 20,000 feet. The city was filling the windows now. She could see individual buildings. Cars on freeways. People. 40 seconds. A little girl's voice from economy class, high and pure and breaking Kira's heart, "Mommy, I'm scared. I don't want to die." The bracelet was bright now. White light leaking between the geometric shapes. Heat spreading up Kira's arm. 30 seconds. She closed her eyes. Saw faces. The businessman beside her who tried to make small talk. The elderly woman across the aisle. The young couple behind her planning dinner. The little girl who was scared. The pilots fighting controls. The flight attendants. The strangers. 200 strangers whose names she didn't know but whose lives were about to end. 20 seconds. I could save them. I could fold space. Teleport the entire aircraft. I've never moved anything this big, but the equations work in theory. High enough energy state, focused properly, I could create a wormhole big enough for a 737. Could relocate us anywhere. Desert. Ocean. Somewhere safe. But it would drain me completely. And the quantum signature would be massive. Impossible to hide. 15 seconds. They'd find me in hours. Maybe minutes. Through 15,000 feet. The tower was still broadcasting, still shouting the ultimatum that couldn't be met. Land or 200 die. 10 seconds. Land now. Captain Reynolds' voice, a whisper caught by the microphone, we can't. The aircraft punched through 10,000 feet. Kira opened her eyes. Looked out the window one last time. She could see people in the buildings now. Faces in windows. Someone was pointing up at them. Someone else was running. 8 seconds. The tower, 8 seconds. Land or 200 die. Kira unbuckled her seatbelt. The businessman grabbed her arm. Are you insane? Sit down. We're crashing. Kira pulled free. Stood. The cabin was tilted at a 40-degree angle, but she kept her balance. Walked forward. 1 step. 2 steps. People were screaming at her to sit down, screaming that she was going to die, screaming in general. She walked past row 1. Reached the cockpit door. Inside, she could see the pilots through the door's small window. Captain Reynolds, according to his nameplate. First Officer Chen. Both fighting controls that weren't responding. Both knowing they had seconds left. 6 seconds. The tower, one final desperate shout, land or 200 die. 6 seconds. Kira placed her right hand flat against the cockpit door. The metal was cold. Her palm covered the crew-only placard. Her left hand, the hand with the bracelet, she raised to chest level. The bracelet was blazing now. Pure white light bright enough to make people shield their eyes. The heat was intense, but Kira didn't pull away. She'd learned 3 years ago that the power didn't burn her. Only everything else. 4 seconds. She opened herself to it. To the thing that lived inside her quantum signature. The thing that made her atoms different from every other human's atoms. The connection to spacetime itself that had formed when she'd stood too close to a wormhole at CERN and reality had decided to make her part of itself. 2 seconds. Energy flooded through her. Not electricity. Not heat. Something else. Something that felt like falling and flying at the same time. Like being everywhere and nowhere. Like being the space between spaces. The equations filled her mind. Not thoughts, pure mathematics. Quantum mechanics. Wormhole metrics. The Einstein-Rosen bridge formulae she'd memorized years ago when they were just theory. 1 second. The tower's final transmission, land or. Kira whispered 2 words. Quiet enough that only she heard them over the screaming and the alarms and the roar of burning engines and the tower's desperate countdown. 2 words that changed everything. Not today. And she folded space. The universe broke. That's what it felt like to Captain Robert Reynolds in the split second between Kira's words and what came next. Like someone had taken reality, wadded it up like a piece of paper, and unfolded it wrong. The alarms stopped. Just stopped. Fire warnings, hydraulic failures, altitude alerts, everything that had been screaming at him for 90 seconds went silent. The aircraft leveled. Perfectly. Smoothly. Like invisible hands had caught it and gently returned it to horizontal flight. And outside the windscreen, the sky was wrong. Reynolds had 22 years flying 737s. Had seen sunrises from 40,000 feet. Had flown through Aurora Borealis over Alaska. Had watched electrical storms light up clouds like Christmas trees. This was none of those things. The sky was folded. That was the only word his brain could supply. Folded like origami. Colors that didn't have names. Swirls of purple that shifted to green that became something his eyes couldn't process. And in the distance. Jesus Christ, First Officer Chen breathed. 2 suns. Not one sun and a reflection. Not some atmospheric phenomenon. 2 actual suns, hanging in a sky that looked like someone had shattered a rainbow and glued the pieces back wrong. Where? Reynolds tried to speak but his voice cracked. Where are we? Chen's hands were still on the controls but the controls weren't doing anything. The aircraft was flying itself. Or being flown. Or something else entirely. I don't know, Chen said. GPS is showing nothing. Altitude is reading negative 50,000 feet and also 100,000 feet simultaneously. Airspeed is 0 and 12,000 knots. None of this makes sense. None of this is. Behind them, through the cockpit door, a sound. Not screaming anymore. Something worse. Silence. Reynolds unbuckled. Stood. His legs felt like water but he moved anyway. Opened the cockpit door. The cabin was frozen. Not literally. People were still moving. But barely. Like they were underwater. The businessman in 2B had his hand raised toward the overhead bin, but the hand was moving so slowly Reynolds could count heartbeats between millimeters of motion. The little girl who'd been crying was turning her head toward the window, but the turn took seconds. Plural seconds. For what should have been an instant movement. And outside the cabin windows. Sir. Chen's voice from the cockpit, strangled. Sir, you need to see this. Reynolds turned. Looked where Chen was pointing. Out the captain's side window. Something was floating beside the aircraft. Not a cloud. Not another plane. A structure. Crystalline. Geometric shapes that hurt to look at because they had angles that shouldn't exist in three-dimensional space. Facets that reflected light in impossible directions. Edges that seemed to extend into places his eyes couldn't follow. It was beautiful and terrifying and completely, utterly impossible. "What is that?" Reynolds whispered. "I don't know," Chen said. "I don't know where we are. I don't know what's happening. I don't know if we're alive or dead or—" Movement in the cabin. Reynolds spun around. The woman from first class, 2A, black blazer, the one who'd unbuckled and stood when they were seconds from impact, was standing in the aisle. Her right hand was still pressed against the cockpit door. Her left hand was raised, and on her left wrist was a bracelet that was glowing like a star. Her eyes were closed. Her lips were moving. Not prayer. Something else. Words that sounded like numbers. Like equations spoken aloud. 47 minutes to stabilize the fold, maintain the Einstein-Rosen bridge at 1.3 solar masses, compensate for quantum decoherence, need 47 minutes. "Ma'am." Reynolds stepped toward her. "Ma'am, what's happening? What did you—" Her eyes opened. They were glowing too. The same white light as the bracelet. Not the whites of her eyes, the pupils, the irises, everything. Like someone had replaced her eyes with miniature suns. "I'm sorry," she said. Her voice sounded distant. Echoing. Like she was speaking from the bottom of a well. "Needed to save you. All of you. The tower said, land or 200 die. But you couldn't land. So I changed the equation. Folded space. But the fold is unstable. Need 47 minutes for the quantum foam to settle. Need." She swayed. The light in her eyes flickered. "Need you to understand, not your fault, none of this is, you did everything right, I just couldn't let you die, couldn't let 200 people die when I could." The light went out. In her eyes. In the bracelet. Everything. She collapsed. Reynolds lunged forward, caught her before she hit the floor. She was unconscious. Completely out. But breathing. Heart beating. Alive. "Captain." Chen's voice from the cockpit. "We have another problem." What problem could possibly be worse than? The passengers. Look at the passengers. Reynolds looked. Every person in the cabin, all 200 souls minus the 2 pilots and the unconscious woman in his arms, was slumping in their seats. Eyes closing. Heads drooping forward or lolling to the side. Not dead. He could see them breathing. But asleep. All of them. Simultaneously. Like someone had flipped a switch and turned off 200 human brains at once. What the hell is happening? Reynolds laid the woman gently in the aisle. Checked her pulse. Strong and steady. "Chen, radio tower. Tell them. Tell them what, sir? That we teleported into another dimension. That everyone's unconscious. That there are 2 suns outside and we're flying through a place that doesn't exist. That some woman just saved us after they said, land or 200 die, and we couldn't land so she broke physics instead." Reynolds had no answer for that. The aircraft flew on. Through the impossible sky. Past the crystalline structures. Under the 2 suns. The controls didn't respond because there were no controls to respond to. The aircraft was being moved by something else. Something that Reynolds' 22 years of flight experience hadn't prepared him for. Something that his brain categorized as simply, her. The woman in the aisle. The woman who'd said, not today. The woman who'd heard the tower shout, land or 200 die, and decided to rewrite reality instead. Reynolds sat on the floor beside her. Checked her pulse again. Still strong. 47 minutes, he said aloud. She said 47 minutes. 47 minutes for what? Chen asked from the cockpit. I don't know. But I think, Reynolds looked out the window at the two-sun sky, at the crystalline structures, at the colors that shouldn't exist. I think she's taking us somewhere safe. The tower gave us an impossible choice. Land or 200 die. We couldn't land. So she gave us a third option. Teleportation through folded space. Yeah. That's impossible. So are 2 suns. So are those crystal things floating outside. So is everything happening right now. But it's happening anyway. Reynolds looked down at the unconscious woman. Her face was peaceful. Like she was sleeping. Like she hadn't just done something that rewrote every law of physics Reynolds had ever learned. I don't know who she is, he said. But she heard land or 200 die and chose save 200 instead. She saved us. All of us. Outside the windows, the impossible dimension scrolled past. Inside the aircraft, 200 people slept. And in the cockpit, a black box flight recorder logged data that would make scientists question everything they thought they knew about reality. Time, 3:14 p.m. Pacific. Location, unknown. Altitude, minus 50,000 feet and plus 150,000 feet simultaneously. Airspeed, 0 knots and 12,000 knots simultaneously. GPS coordinates, error. 47 minutes remaining. Edwards Air Force Base, California. Auxiliary Airstrip 7. 300 miles northeast of Los Angeles in the Mojave Desert. Staff Sergeant Mike Torres was having the most boring shift of his life. Auxiliary 7 was a backup runway. Nobody used it except for emergencies or the occasional test flight from the main base. Today was neither. Today was just heat, shimmer and emptiness, and Torres sitting in a control shack drinking bad coffee and wondering if he could get away with watching Netflix on his phone. The answer was probably no. Colonel Briggs had a sixth sense for detecting slacking. But it was 3:45 p.m. and nothing had happened and nothing was going to. Space rippled. Torres blinked. Rubbed his eyes. Looked again. The empty runway, 2 miles of concrete that had been completely, utterly empty 2 seconds ago, was rippling. Like heat shimmer, except it was January and only 70 degrees. Like looking at reality through a sheet of water. He grabbed his radio. Tower, this is AUX-7, are you seeing this? Static. Then, AUX-7, seeing what? The air over the runway, it's. The ripple intensified. Space itself seemed to be folding. Torres could see through it, could see the runway on the other side, but it was like looking through a funhouse mirror. Distorted. Wrong. And then space unfolded. Like someone smoothing out a wrinkled sheet. One moment the runway was empty. The next moment. A Boeing 737 was sitting on the concrete. Not landing. Not taxiing. Sitting. Perfectly positioned on the centerline. Landing gear down. Engines running at idle. Like it had been there all along, except it absolutely, definitely had not been there 5 seconds ago. Torres dropped his coffee cup. It shattered on the floor, but he didn't notice. Tower, he said into the radio, voice shaking, we have an aircraft on AUX-7. AUX-7, we show no traffic inbound to your position. Tower, there's a 737 sitting on my runway and I didn't see it land. It just appeared. It just appeared out of nowhere. Silence on the radio. 3 seconds. 5 seconds. Then a different voice. Colonel Briggs. Torres, repeat that. Sir, I'm looking at a Boeing 737 on Auxiliary 7. Southwest Airlines livery. Engines running. No landing lights, no approach, it just materialized. 1 second the runway was empty, next second the plane was there. More silence. Then, Torres, stay in your position. Do not approach the aircraft. Emergency response is rolling. If anyone exits that plane, you stop them. Understood? Understood, sir. Torres watched through the shack windows. The 737 sat motionless. Engines running. No movement inside that he could see. Fire trucks and security vehicles arrived 6 minutes later. Surrounded the aircraft. Foam cannons ready in case of fire. Armed personnel in case of, whatever else. Colonel Briggs arrived in a jeep. Took one look at the 737 and said something Torres couldn't hear but was pretty sure involved creative profanity. The tower tried to hail the pilots. No response. They tried again. Nothing. Briggs made a decision. Ordered the emergency crew to board the aircraft. Torres watched as firefighters approached with ladders. Opened the forward door. Watched as they entered. Watched as they emerged 2 minutes later looking like they'd seen a ghost. The lead firefighter jogged to Briggs. They spoke for 30 seconds. Briggs' expression went from confused to shocked to something Torres couldn't identify. Briggs grabbed a radio. Spoke urgently. 10 minutes later, ambulances arrived. Then military medical personnel. Then more people in suits that Torres recognized as federal agents even though they weren't wearing badges. And over the next hour, Torres watched as 200 unconscious people were carefully carried off the aircraft and loaded into ambulances. Every single person. Passengers. Flight attendants. Pilots. All unconscious. All breathing. All alive but not awake. It took almost 2 hours to evacuate everyone. The last person carried off was a woman in a black blazer from first class. Torres saw the EMTs pause when they lifted her. Saw them staring at her left wrist. Saw one of them try to remove a silver bracelet but the woman, unconscious, made a sound and the bracelet wouldn't budge. They left it on. Loaded her into the last ambulance. Torres watched the convoy drive away toward the base hospital. Watched as federal agents sealed off the aircraft. Watched as a team of investigators boarded with equipment he didn't recognize. And he wondered, not for the first time that day, but definitely the most intensely, what the hell had just happened. His question was answered 6 hours later when the first passenger woke up. Maria Sanchez opened her eyes in a hospital bed and had no idea where she was. Last thing she remembered, sitting in seat 14C on Southwest 2847, holding her husband's hand as the plane caught fire and fell from the sky. The tower screaming, "Land or 200 die," over the speakers. The captain saying they couldn't land. Closing her eyes. Praying. Squeezing Carlos' hand so hard her knuckles went white. Now, fluorescent lights. Beeping machines. A hospital gown. And a woman in military uniform standing beside her bed. "Mrs. Sanchez," the woman said gently. "I'm Lieutenant Davis. You're at Edwards Air Force Base Medical. You're safe. How do you feel?" Maria's mouth was dry. What happened?" "The plane was crashing. The tower was shouting about landing or dying. We were going to hit the city." "Did we? Are we?" "You're alive," Davis said. "Everyone's alive. All 200 passengers and crew survived." "How?" "We were falling. The engine was on fire. The captain said we couldn't land. The tower kept yelling, 'Land or 200 die,' but we couldn't, we were over downtown." "Mrs. Sanchez, what's the last thing you remember?" Maria closed her eyes. Tried to think. The fire. Falling. That awful countdown. Land or 200 die. 8 seconds. My husband next to me. Praying. Then, nothing. Blank. Like someone cut out a piece of my memory. Next thing I know, I'm here. Davis was writing on a tablet. No memory of anything between the engine failure and waking up. No. It's just gone. Like I skipped, Maria paused. How long was I unconscious? Approximately 4 hours since the aircraft landed here. Landed? Where's here? Edwards Air Force Base. About 300 miles from Los Angeles. Maria sat up too fast. The room spun. 300 miles. That's impossible. We were barely past Vegas when the engine blew. We were falling into downtown LA. Even if we'd glided, we couldn't have made it to, wait, the tower said, land or 200 die. Did we land? How did we land? We're still investigating exactly what happened. Over the next hour, every passenger told the same story. Engine explosion. Fire. Falling. The tower's desperate ultimatum, land or 200 die. The countdown. Terror. Then nothing. A gap in memory. Waking up at Edwards. Nobody remembered anything in between. Except James Chen, no relation to First Officer Chen, was a software engineer from San Jose. 32 years old. Seat 12F. When he woke up, the first thing he did was check his phone. Why? Lieutenant Davis asked. I don't know, James said. Instinct. I always check my phone. Anyway, I turned it on and he pulled up his photo gallery. Showed Davis. I found these. Davis looked at the screen. Her expression didn't change, but James saw her hand tighten on her tablet. The photos showed 1. The interior of the aircraft. But wrong. The walls were translucent. Like looking through frosted glass. And through the walls, James could see something. Shapes that didn't make sense. Angles that hurt his eyes. 2. The view out a window. A sky with 2 suns. Both clearly visible. Both definitely suns, not one sun and a reflection. 3. A crystalline structure floating in the sky. Geometric. Impossible. Reflecting light in colors that looked wrong on the screen. Colors that James' phone camera shouldn't have been able to capture because they shouldn't exist. 4. I don't remember taking these, James said. I don't remember seeing any of this. But my phone says I took them at 3:22 p.m. Time stamped. Geotagged to, well, to coordinates that don't exist on Earth. Davis took his phone. We'll need to keep this for analysis. Why? What is it? What happened to us? How did we go from land or 200 die in downtown LA to waking up here 300 miles away? We're still investigating. But James wasn't the only one with photos. 63 passengers had taken pictures or video during the missing 47 minutes. None of them remembered doing it. All of them showed the same impossible things. 2 suns. Crystalline structures. Colors that didn't exist. The aircraft interior but transparent, showing dimensions beyond. NASA analyzed the images. DARPA got copies. Every intelligence agency descended on Edwards with classified equipment and urgent questions. The conclusion was unanimous and terrifying. These images are genuine, Dr. Sarah Chen from NASA's Ames Research Center told the assembled investigators. Not photoshopped. Not faked. The light wavelengths captured in these photos include frequencies outside our visible spectrum. The geometric structures shown have mathematical properties that violate Euclidean space. And the geotag data. She paused. Pulled up a chart. The geotag data places the aircraft at coordinates that don't correspond to any location on Earth. Or in Earth orbit. Or anywhere in our solar system. The coordinates describe a location in space that, according to our understanding of physics, doesn't exist. Then where were they? Someone asked. I don't know, Dr. Chen admitted. But based on the evidence, they were somewhere else. Someone else. Some dimension else. Somewhere that exists outside our normal spacetime. The black box data made it worse. Flight recorders from commercial aircraft are designed to survive crashes. Fire. Impact. Submersion. They're built to preserve data under the worst possible conditions. Southwest 2847's black box had preserved data under impossible conditions. The NTSB investigator who first reviewed the flight data recorder had to step outside for 10 minutes. When he came back, he looked pale. From timestamp 15 hours to 15 hours and 47 minutes, the missing 47 minutes, the data shows. He pulled up graphs on his laptop. Altitude fluctuating between negative 50,000 feet and positive 150,000 feet. Both readings simultaneously. Not alternating, simultaneous. Airspeed reading 0 and 12,000 knots at the same time. GPS showing coordinates in multiple places at once. Compass showing magnetic north in 4 different directions. Gravity readings of 0.3 g, then 2.7 g, then negative gravity. He looked up at the room full of investigators. According to this data, the aircraft was in a place where physics don't work. Where our fundamental laws break down. Where multiple quantum states exist simultaneously without collapsing. That's impossible, someone said. Yes, the investigator agreed. But it happened anyway. At exactly 3 p.m., Los Angeles Tower transmitted land or 200 die to Southwest 2847. 8 seconds later, the aircraft vanished from all sensors. 47 minutes after that, it materialized here, 300 miles away, with everyone alive. The satellite footage was reviewed next. Military satellites that had been tracking the burning aircraft over Los Angeles. At timestamp 15 hours, the aircraft was there. Visible on infrared. Visible on visual spectrum. Falling. On fire. 8 seconds from impact with downtown LA. Los Angeles Tower's final transmission clearly audible on recordings, land or 200 die. At timestamp 15 hours and 1 second, the aircraft was gone. Not exploded. Not crashed. Gone. Like someone had erased it from reality. For 47 minutes, no satellite could find any trace of Southwest 2847. Then at timestamp 15 hours and 47 minutes, satellites watching Edwards Air Force Base recorded something unprecedented. Space itself distorted over auxiliary runway 7. Like a lens. Like gravity warping light. Like the universe folding. And inside the distortion, an aircraft appeared. Not landing. Not approaching. Appearing. Materializing. Resolving from folded space into normal space. The video was played frame by frame. Enhanced. Analyzed. It's a wormhole, Dr. Chen said quietly. Or what a wormhole would look like if you could actually create one. Space folding. 2 distant points in spacetime connected. The aircraft traveling through the fold. Someone heard land or 200 die and chose option 3, teleport instead. Can we do that? An Air Force general asked. Can we create wormholes? No, Dr. Chen said. We can barely create stable quantum entanglement in laboratory conditions. Creating a wormhole large enough to move a 737 would require energy equivalent to a star. It's theoretically possible but practically impossible with any technology we possess. Then who did this? That question led investigators to the woman in seat 2A. Kira woke up handcuffed to a hospital bed. The room was white. Clinical. A military medical facility based on the equipment. And the handcuffs, professional grade, attached to rails that were probably bolted to the floor. Her head ached. Her entire body felt like she'd run a marathon through concrete. Using the ability always drained her, but she'd never moved anything as large as an aircraft before. Had never held a wormhole open for 47 minutes straight. She was lucky to be alive. Unlucky to be caught. The door opened. A man in a dark suit entered. No badge visible, but Kira recognized the type. Federal agent. Intelligence community. Probably NSA based on the way he carried himself, analytically, like he was already running threat assessments. He sat in a chair beside the bed. Didn't smile. Dr. Kira Volkov, he said. Not a question. Or should I call you Sarah Mitchell? Or maybe Anna Petrova? Or Jennifer Liu? You've had a lot of names these past 3 years. Kira said nothing. You disappeared from CERN 3 years ago after what was officially reported as a laboratory accident. Unofficially, we know you were exposed to an experimental wormhole. And after that exposure, you developed abilities. He pulled out a tablet. Showed her satellite footage of the aircraft vanishing over Los Angeles. We've been tracking quantum anomalies for 3 years. Small ones. Brief spikes. Never enough to pinpoint your location. You were careful. Smart. Stayed off the grid. He swiped to another image. Audio waveform of the tower transmission, land or 200 die. Then this happened. Tower gave an impossible ultimatum. The pilots couldn't comply. 8 seconds from impact with downtown LA. And you. He swiped again. The distortion over Edwards. You did this. Created the largest quantum signature ever recorded. Every sensor on the planet lit up. LIGO detected gravitational waves from a source that shouldn't exist. Satellites recorded spacetime distortion. You teleported an entire aircraft 600 miles through folded space. He put the tablet away. 200 lives saved. Thousands more saved on the ground when you prevented the crash. From a certain perspective, Dr. Volkov, you're a hero. You heard land or 200 die, and gave them option 3. From what perspective am I not? Kira asked. Her voice was hoarse. From the perspective of people who don't want someone with your abilities running around unsupervised. From the perspective of scientists who want to understand how you do what you do. From the perspective of military planners who see applications for wormhole technology in warfare. I'm not a weapon. You're whatever we decide you are, the man said calmly. You're a national security asset. Maybe the most valuable asset in the world. You can fold space. Teleport objects. Create stable wormholes. Do you understand what that means? It means you want to use me. It means we need to study you. Understand the physics. Replicate the process. Imagine instant transportation anywhere on Earth. Instant delivery of supplies to troops. Spacecraft that can cross the solar system in seconds instead of years. You're not just a weapon, Dr. Volkov. You're the key to the next evolution of human civilization. Or the key to new ways of killing people faster. The man smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. We can discuss philosophy later. Right now, you have a choice. Cooperate willingly. Come work with us. Help us understand this technology. Or we classify you under the National Defense Authorization Act and you disappear into a research facility where cooperation becomes less optional. Kira tested the handcuffs. Solid. Well made. No give. How long do I have to think about it? You don't. The decision's already made. You're too valuable to lose. The only question is whether you make this easy or hard. Kira closed her eyes. Felt the bracelet on her wrist. They hadn't removed it, probably couldn't figure out how. The geometric shapes were still dormant, but she could feel the potential in them. The connection to something beyond normal space. I saved 200 lives today, she said quietly. Heard the towers say land or 200 die, and chose to save them instead. That's all I wanted to do. Save lives. I didn't want to be found. Didn't want to be used. Just wanted to help. And you did help. Now you can help on a larger scale. By building weapons. By advancing science. Kira opened her eyes. Looked directly at the agent. What's your name? He hesitated. Then, Porter. Agent Porter. Agent Porter, I have a question. Do you know what happens to quantum states when they're observed? They collapse. Schrödinger's cat. Basic quantum mechanics. Right. The act of observation forces a choice. Before observation, particles exist in superposition, all possible states simultaneously. After observation, one state becomes real. What's your point? My point is that you're observing me right now. Making me choose. Forcing me to collapse into one state or another. Cooperate or resist. Help or fight. The bracelet on her wrist began to glow. Faintly. Porter's eyes widened. Don't. You want to know how I do it? Kira's voice was calm. Conversational. It's simple. My quantum signature is entangled with spacetime itself. My consciousness can perceive dimensions you can't see. And when I need to, when I really, truly need to, I can step into those dimensions. Like when the tower said, land or 200 die, and I chose, save 200 instead. The glow intensified. You're handcuffed to a bed, Porter said. Surrounded by armed guards. You try to escape and what? You'll shoot me. The most valuable asset in the world. I don't think so. Kira closed her eyes. Let herself feel the space around her. The room. The building. The guards outside. The entire base. And beyond the base, the desert. The emptiness. The vast open nowhere where quantum signatures could dissipate undetected. I made a choice today, she said. Saved 200 people knowing you'd find me. Did it anyway because lives mattered more than my freedom. Heard land or 200 die and refused to accept those as the only options. The bracelet was bright now. White light filling the room. Now I'm making another choice. Dr. Volkov. Not today, Kira whispered. Space folded. The handcuffs were still locked to the bed. But Kira wasn't in them anymore. She was standing across the room. Then at the door. Then in the hallway. Alarms shrieked. Guards shouted. Porter was yelling into a radio. Kira walked through walls. Literally. Her quantum state shifted, became entangled with the matter around her, let her phase through solid objects like they were air. She passed through 3 levels of security. Through locked doors. Through armed checkpoints. Into the parking lot. Into the desert beyond. 200 yards from the base, she collapsed. Using the ability that much, that fast, had drained her completely. But she'd made it. She lay in the sand, breathing hard, watching the base lights behind her. Watching searchlights sweep the desert. They wouldn't find her. She'd already folded space again, a short hop, just 50 yards, but enough to break line of sight. Her phone, miraculously still in her pocket, buzzed. 47 missed calls from unknown numbers. No. Not unknown. She recognized one number. Checked the voicemail. Captain Reynolds' voice, Dr. Volkov, or whoever you are, I don't know how you did what you did. Don't understand the science. But I need to say thank you. The tower told us to land or 200 would die. We couldn't land. You saved us anyway. My 6-year-old daughter gets to have her daddy tonight because of you. 200 people get to go home to their families. Whatever you are, wherever you came from, you're a hero. And if you're running, if they're hunting you, I want you to know that what you did mattered. You saved us. All of us. Thank you. The message ended. Kira started crying. 3 years of running. 3 years of hiding. 3 years of not letting herself feel anything because feeling led to stress and stress triggered her abilities. Now she felt everything. She'd saved 200 lives. And lost her anonymity forever. But looking up at the desert stars, listening to Captain Reynolds' message again, she realized something. It had been worth it. She stood. Dusted sand off her clothes. Checked her bracelet, still glowing faintly, but recovering. Time to run again. Time to disappear. Find a new city, new identity, new life. But this time, she'd run knowing what she'd done. Who she'd saved. And maybe, just maybe, she'd stop running next time lives were at stake. Her phone buzzed again. A news alert. She opened it. Read the headline. Miracle over LA, after land or 200 die, ultimatum, 737 vanishes mid-crash, reappears 600 miles away. All survive. Mysterious woman disappears from custody. The story was everywhere. Every news network. Every website. The aircraft vanishing on radar. The tower's desperate transmission. The impossible dimension in the passenger photos. The black box data defying physics. And security footage from Edwards, grainy but clear enough, showing a woman in a black blazer walking through walls like a ghost. Her face was pixelated. But it wouldn't stay that way. Kira turned off her phone. Started walking. Desert stretched endlessly in every direction. She had maybe 12 hours before facial recognition software identified her from the footage. 12 hours before her face was on every screen in America. 12 hours to become someone else. Again. She walked into the darkness, silver bracelet glowing faintly on her wrist, leaving no footprints in the sand because her quantum state had shifted just enough to not quite touch the ground. Dr. Kira Volkov had vanished again. But the world now knew she existed. And that changed everything. The video went viral in 6 hours. Someone at Edwards, probably a technician who didn't fully understand classification protocols, leaked security footage to YouTube. The video showed Kira walking through walls. Passing through locked doors like they were air. Guards shooting, bullets passing harmlessly through her phased form. The video was removed within minutes. But the internet never forgets. Copies spread to 100 sites. 1,000. 1,000,000. By morning, the whole world had seen it. The media went insane. CNN, quantum physicist with reality-bending powers saves flight after land or 200 die, ultimatum. BBC, woman who teleported burning 737, British Airways confirms similar incident over Atlantic. Fox, government admits they've been hunting quantum woman for 3 years. The passenger photos from inside the impossible dimension were analyzed by every physicist with a TV contract. The consensus was shocking, the photos were real. Unaltered. Genuine documentation of a place outside normal spacetime. Dr. Sarah Chen from NASA did an interview. What we're seeing is evidence of traversable wormholes. Actual, functional shortcuts through spacetime. This woman, Dr. Volkov, somehow has the ability to create and navigate these wormholes. When the tower said, land or 200 die, she created option 3, teleport. It's the most significant scientific discovery in human history. And she's being hunted like a criminal. The government's official response was carefully worded. Dr. Volkov is a person of interest in several classified incidents. We request her cooperation for national security purposes. Translation, they wanted her locked up and studied. Public response was overwhelmingly different. Social media exploded with hashtag #ThankYouKira and hashtag QuantumAngel trending worldwide. People who'd lost faith in heroes had found a new one. A woman who could fold reality itself but chose to save lives instead of conquer nations. Captain Reynolds gave an interview, tower told us land or 200 die. We had 8 seconds. We couldn't land. Then she stood up, walked to the cockpit, and saved us all. Saved my life. My daughter still has a father because of her. The government says she's dangerous. I say she's the bravest person I've ever met. Then something unexpected happened. 10 days after the incident, every major news network received an identical video file. Uploaded anonymously. Untraceable. The video showed Dr. Kira Volkov sitting in an undisclosed location. Behind her, desert landscape. Could be anywhere. She looked directly into the camera and spoke. My name is Dr. Kira Volkov. 3 years ago, I was a physicist at CERN. I was studying quantum entanglement when an accident occurred, an experimental wormhole opened and I was exposed to energies that changed my quantum signature. After that exposure, I discovered I could manipulate spacetime. Fold it. Create wormholes. Teleport objects and myself through space. She paused. Lifted her left wrist, showing the silver bracelet. This bracelet helps me focus the ability. But the ability itself comes from something that happened to me on a quantum level. My atoms are entangled with spacetime in ways that shouldn't be possible. I ran because governments wanted to weaponize me. Turn me into a tool for warfare. Teleporting troops. Delivering weapons. Creating shortcuts for missiles. I refused. So I hid. Used false identities. Moved constantly. Suppressed my abilities because using them created detectable quantum signatures. For 3 years, I stayed hidden. Safe. Then Southwest Flight 2847 caught fire over Los Angeles. 200 people were seconds from death. The tower gave an impossible ultimatum, land or 200 die. The pilots couldn't land. Thousands more would have died when the plane crashed into downtown. I could have stayed hidden. Let them die. Preserved my safety. I chose differently. She stood. Walked closer to the camera. I teleported that aircraft through folded space. Moved it 600 miles in 47 minutes through a dimension outside normal physics. All 200 souls survived. When the tower said, land or 200 die, I gave them option 3. It revealed me. Exposed my location. Cost me my anonymity. But I'd make the same choice again. Every time. Her voice hardened. The government is hunting me. They want to study me. Use me. Turn my abilities into weapons. I'm telling the world right now, I will never be a weapon. I will never help build tools for killing. But I will use my abilities to save lives. If an aircraft is crashing, if people are trapped, if someone says land or die and there's no other option, I'll be there. I'll fold space. I'll create wormholes. I'll do what's impossible because lives matter more than physics. She lifted her wrist again. The bracelet began to glow. You can't find me. I exist between spaces now. I can teleport anywhere, anytime. I can phase through walls, fold myself across continents, hide in dimensions you can't perceive. But if you need me, if lives are at stake, I'll be there. She looked directly into the camera. Her eyes were fierce. Determined. My name is Dr. Kira Volkov. The government calls me a fugitive. Captain Reynolds calls me a hero. I call myself someone who won't let people die when I can fold reality itself to save them. Not today, death. The bracelet glowed brighter. Not today. The video ended. The internet exploded. Again. Within hours, #NotToday was trending globally. Artists created murals of Kira's face with the 2 suns behind her. Musicians wrote songs. T-shirts appeared with her silhouette and the phrase, not today, or, land or 200 die, she chose option 3. The government response was predictable, manhunt intensified. Quantum sensors deployed globally. Every intelligence agency on Earth looking for the next spike in spacetime. But Kira had learned to mask her signature. Short hops, under a second. Brief enough that sensors registered background noise instead of deliberate manipulation. She moved like a ghost. Appearing in Cairo. Vanishing. Reappearing in Tokyo. Gone again. Always moving. Never staying. A phantom who lived between spaces. Until British Airways Flight 179. London to New York. Boeing 777. 412 souls aboard. 6 hours into the flight. Over the Atlantic. No land for 400 miles in any direction. Engine 3, the right side inner engine, ingested a bird at 37,000 feet. Catastrophic turbine failure. Fire. And worse, shrapnel from the explosion damaged engine 4. 2 engines out on the right side. The aircraft listing. Pilots fighting. Captain Elizabeth Morrison's voice over the PA, "Ladies and gentlemen, we've experienced dual engine failure on our right side. We're declaring an emergency and descending. Please remain calm and..." The aircraft dropped. Not controlled descent. Falling. 371 miles from land. No airports. No ships close enough. Just ocean. 412 people about to die. In seat 1A, first class, a woman in a black blazer opened her eyes. She'd been sleeping. Deliberately. Long flight. Boring. Safe. Not safe anymore. The woman stood. Walked calmly toward the cockpit while passengers screamed and prayed and clutched armrests. She placed her hand on the cockpit door. Captain Morrison looked up. Saw the woman through the door's window. Recognized her instantly. Everyone in aviation knew that face now. The woman from Flight 2847. The Quantum Angel. The impossible hero. The woman who heard "land or 200 die" and chose option 3. How? Morrison breathed. The woman smiled. Lifted her left wrist. Silver bracelet glowing. She mouthed 2 words, "Not today." Space folded. The aircraft vanished from radar. 43 minutes later, British Airways Flight 179 appeared at Heathrow Airport in London. Perfectly landed. All 412 souls unconscious but alive. Security footage showed a woman walking calmly out of the aircraft, through the terminal, and vanishing into a crowd. The media coverage was instant. Global. Overwhelming. She did it again, Quantum Woman saves second flight over Atlantic. Not today, Dr. Volkov strikes again, 412 lives saved. Kira didn't watch the coverage. She was already gone. Folded through space to Prague. Then Mumbai. Then Sao Paulo. Moving. Always moving. But also waiting. Monitoring. Listening to emergency frequencies and flight tracking. Waiting for the next crisis. The next impossible situation. The next moment when someone would say, "land or die," and she could whisper 2 words and save them anyway. 3 months later, Air France flight on fire over the Mediterranean. Kira appeared. Teleported the aircraft to safety. 87 lives saved. 5 months later, Singapore Airlines hydraulic failure over the Pacific. Kira appeared. Saved them. 143 souls. 7 months later, Lufthansa near collision at 41,000 feet. Kira created a temporary wormhole, separated the aircraft by 300 miles instantly. 98 lives saved on one plane, 112 on the other. Every time, she appeared like a ghost. Saved lives. Vanished before authorities could respond. The world called her the Quantum Angel. The guardian of the skies. The woman who broke physics to save lives. The woman who heard land or die and always chose save them instead. Governments still hunted her. But public opinion had shifted. People loved her. Trusted her. Believed in her. She became a symbol. Proof that power didn't have to corrupt. That abilities could be used selflessly. Airlines started installing plaques in their aircraft, protected by Dr. Kira Volkov's courage. Children drew pictures of her with her silver bracelet glowing, 2 suns behind her, with captions like, "Not today," and, "She saved them all." Scientists studied the wormhole mechanics, hoping to understand. Maybe someday replicate. But Kira herself remained hidden. A phantom who existed between spaces, watching, waiting, ready. Somewhere in northern Sweden. A cabin in the woods. Snow falling softly. Kira sat by a fireplace, drinking tea. Her laptop open. Monitoring flight tracking websites. Emergency frequencies. The silver bracelet on her wrist was still. Quiet. On the mantel above the fireplace, a photo. Not of her. Of the people she'd saved. Captain Reynolds holding his 6-year-old daughter. Maria Sanchez with her husband Carlos. James Chen smiling. And more photos. Hundreds of them. Every person from Flight 2847. Every person from Flight 179. Every life saved. 412 people on Flight 179. 200 on Flight 2847. 87 on the Air France flight. 143 on Singapore Airlines. 98 and 112 on the Lufthansa incident. 1,152 lives. Not experiments. Not test subjects. Not national security assets. Lives. People with families. Dreams. Futures. All alive because she'd chosen to save them. Because when someone said, land or die, she chose, not today, instead. Her phone buzzed. A news alert. Emirates Flight 441 reports engine trouble over Indian Ocean, 600 aboard. Kira read the details. Engine fire. Losing altitude. 600 souls aboard. 400 miles from nearest land. She stood. Finished her tea. Put on her jacket. The bracelet began to glow. Faintly. Warming. Ready. She closed her eyes. Felt the space around her. The cabin. The forest. Sweden. And beyond, continents. Oceans. The curve of Earth itself. And above India, falling through the sky, an aircraft full of people who didn't know their guardian angel was already coming. People who didn't know that somewhere, someone was about to hear, land or die, and whisper 2 words that would change their fate. Kira whispered the equation. Felt spacetime fold. Felt herself shift between dimensions. Felt the pull of crisis, the gravitational call of lives at stake. Her last thought before teleporting. 600 more. 600 more lives. Someone will probably say land or 600 die. And I'll give them option 3. Not today, death. Not today. Space folded. The cabin was empty. And 40,000 feet above the Indian Ocean, inside the cockpit of Emirates Flight 441, a woman in a black blazer appeared. Hand on the cockpit door. Silver bracelet blazing like a star. The captain looked at her. Recognized her. Understood immediately. You're. Kira smiled. Not today, she whispered. And saved them all. In a world bound by physics, one woman learned to break them. In a universe governed by rules, she chose which rules mattered. When the tower said, land or 200 die, she gave them option 3. 2 words. Two impossible words that changed everything. Not today. Not today, death. Not today, physics. Not today, fate. Just, not today. And 1,152 people went home to their families. Because Dr. Kira Volkov, quantum physicist, fugitive, reality bender, guardian angel, exists between spaces. Watching. Waiting. Ready. For the next time someone needs a hero who can fold the universe itself. For the next time someone says, land or die, and needs to hear two words.